Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transparency Podcast. I am your girl, Butta B-Rocka. It is so cool to have you guys tuned in, listening to me on YouTube, on Pandora, on Spotify, and all those things. I truly appreciate you. We have an amazing show today, but I want to say for everybody that's affected with the coronavirus, take this time to not only, get closer with your family, but take this time to become creative. There's so many things that you can discover when you don't have nothing but time on your hands. Learn a new trade, learn how to do some stuff on the computer. There's so many things. You can do stuff around your house, just a lot of different things that you can do to keep your mind elevated. You can also check out these books. My book, Fear of Failure, Fear of Not Trying, it is available both digitally and paperback. See? You can also check out Defiant One's Teen Magazine. It is a magazine for teens by teens, but not only do they highlight teens and young adults, but they talk about entrepreneurship. They talk about financial literacy, health and wellness of teens, sex trafficking, school, all these various topics that a lot of people don't talk about, especially for teens. And last but not least, I would like to introduce to you speaker, coach, and award-winning author, Mr. David Cook, who has an amazing book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose. And when I tell you guys that this book is amazing, I promise you I'm not just gassing him up because he's on here. I had the pleasure of meeting David. I've been part of the Golden Key International High Honor Society as the first president, and for Ashford University. And David was the guest speaker, and I was completely blown away by his story. But more importantly, I was blown away by him in general. I mean, he's so just charismatic. He's just awesome. So, hey, David, how are you?
I am great. I am so glad to see you. It's been a long time, and we've exchanged social media posts to see how we were both doing, and you look fabulous.
Thank you. I appreciate it. For most of y'all might not know that I had a knee surgery, torn meniscus, torn ACL, and I dislocated my shoulder. And David was one of the first people to contact me, praying for me, telling me that it was going to be okay. And just officially, I want you to know, I truly appreciate you for doing that, because I really was. I mean, it's easy to get into a slump and to get depressed. And I was really going through those phases. I would have my ups and I would have my downs of trying to cope. I'm pretty much an optimistic person, but sometimes it gets to you. So you was one of those instrumental people that helped me get through it, and I truly appreciate you. But it's not about me today. It's all about you, my brother. So can you let everyone know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am the second oldest of four children. At the age of 15 years old, I had a spinal aneurysm that left me a wheelchair user. I was a basketball player growing up, loved to play, had aspirations to play for my high school, never really had goals to go beyond that. But sometimes life takes you down turns that you don't expect. I call it a flagrant foul. And it's one of those things where in basketball, a flagrant foul is really intended to keep you from scoring and make you think mentally about going back to the basket. But what actually does happen with the flagrant foul is you actually get the ball, 2 shots, and another chance to score. And so what I learned at a very, very early age is, as long as I still had life and breath, I was going to have the opportunity to continue to score. So I was fortunate enough that basketball was still a part of my life and still is today. Been able to coach at various levels, high school, college, internationally. I got my MBA from Duke, my undergrad in finance, did some things corporately and in the education field. So my life has been great in spite of difficulty. And like you said earlier, it's not always so easy. There are ups and there's downs, and there are moments where you struggle. There's moments where you don't feel like doing it. But your purpose drives you and kind of keeps you going through those, and also connecting with people and having people to step in and help you get through those difficult times. I'm currently an author and a speaker. That's what I do now, and I love doing that after spending 25 years in education. I taught economics and did some diversity work and a few other things. But now the opportunity to share my story and try to inspire people to be the best that they can be and to do what they were designed to do is really motivating and invigorating for me as well.
That's wonderful. So let's take it back a little bit. You was playing basketball in high school at age 15, sophomore. And when did you discover that something felt wrong? And take us through that process.
Okay, it was the morning of October 19th of 1979. I went to school that morning. We were in the midst of our first quarter exams, and my back felt a little different. I had some pain in it, but I didn't think much of it because literally, I believe it was about a week to 10 days before then, I had just had a physical. And that physical, I had been given a clean bill of health, no issues at all. So I didn't think much about my back bothering me at that point. I thought that I slept funny or, ate something, one of those kind of things. But as the day progressed, I played basketball that day. I took my exams, went to the gym, played basketball, but I wasn't quite myself. And as that day progressed, I began to have a little bit more difficulty walking. But again, we didn't think much of it. We prayed about it, laid down, thought, let me just get a little sleep. I'll probably feel better when I get up. Well, when I got up, I couldn't get up. And that's when we went to the emergency room. And it took about 5 hours or so for them to get to me and get a diagnosis. And they said you had a blood vessel that erupted on your spinal cord. Oh. And there was nothing that I could have done to prevent it and nothing that I did to deserve it. It just happened. And from that moment on, we had to make adjustments. And I'm grateful for my family, my faith, my friends. We always talk about those things, but until you get in a real situation where you really are dependent on someone other than yourself, for me, God has always been a part of my life since I was 13. So I knew he was there, but to have my parents and my siblings there and friends there to support me, because I tell people all the time, I appreciate your thoughts and prayers, but I love your personal contact. And that made a huge difference for me as we started down this journey.
Yeah, with me injuring my knee and having the brace on and I did 3 months with a walker and 2 months using a cane and all that type of stuff. I absolutely understand it better now because if you're not in that person's shoes, you kind of get it, but until you are totally dependent, like you just said, it's mind blowing. What was your thought process when you discovered that most of the stuff that you was used to doing, you now had to figure out other ways to do them?
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't know, I guess, the severity of what I had to deal with. And I think youth sometimes helps with those things, because the older you get, you bring baggage and other things into your situation. But I was 15 years old. I was like, okay, whatever, I need to get back to school. I was starting to like girls, all those types of things. And so my mindset was never, I can't do this. I just got to hurry up and get it done. But to have to, as much as the spinal aneurysm changed my life, so to speak, was life changing, I guess is what I would say. When I got to the rehab center and I met my roommate, and his name was Tony Otters. And Tony was a quadriplegic. And Tony was like the most upbeat guy I had ever seen. He had a diving accident, broke his neck. He had much less ability than I had, but he was talking about going home and going to medical school and all that kind of stuff. He changed my life.
Right. The
aneurysm was life-changing. He changed my life, and it began to help me understand the importance of perspective. And I was like, well, heck, if he got this, I got this, And so I was motivated by what I saw him doing in his struggle. And that's when we talk about how people, when you get on the other side of your situation, there's somebody that will benefit from it that you don't even know.
Right.
And he had no idea the impact he had. And so, literally I had to relearn how to do everything without the use of my legs. Getting dressed, getting in and out of the car, getting in and out of the bed, all of those things. And it took time. And I didn't get it right away. I had plenty of failure. in the process, plenty of frustration in the process, plenty of crying in the process.
Yeah.
But once I got through that, I began to learn how to measure small steps. I think there were times I was trying to do too much, and it was just do a little bit, just do a little bit. And so I learned in that process at a young age, at the age of 15, that you only get today. So win today.
Right.
Manage today. Take care of what you can today. That's all you have anyway. Beyond that is out of your control. And so if you wake up the next day and you get another one, knock that thing out and begin to just have little victories along the way. And you talked about your situation where you went from walker to cane to being good. You know, there were steps in the process. If it were up to you, you'd have been like, okay, let's get this right away. Same thing with me. I tell people all the time, we don't necessarily get to choose our testimony, because if it were up to me, I'd have walked away from this 40 years ago.
Right.
No problem. I'd have chosen something else. I'd have been like, let me have that over there instead of this.
Right.
But we don't get to do that. But what we do get to do is manage how we respond to the things that happen to us in life.
Right.
And whether we want to live and be positive, or if we want to not live and not be positive.
Right.
That's a choice. And that choice does define who you surround yourself with, what you listen to, where you go. I mean, it impacts everything that you do. And so that's kind of how I also had in high school, there were 4 guys that really took me under their wing. And it was a diverse group of guys. It was crazy. You know, I had an evangelical Christian guy, I had an atheist, I had a liberal German guy, I had an African-American guy who lived around the corner from me. I didn't even know that. Those guys became my crew. They made sure I got to games, sporting events, things at school. They made the last 2.5 years of my experience in high school fantastic. And so it taught me about giving people a chance and not being so quick to determine who it is that can help me, because you don't know who that's going to be. I would have never, I mean, one of the guys had a drug problem. I mean, it was crazy. And you know what? A couple of those guys, I recently, have dealt with some health issues. And so I was bedridden for almost 120 days. And a couple of those guys, one came up from Atlanta to check on me, another guy called from Boston, and they actually came to see how I was doing. And so those relationships are still there.
Right.
And I think that was an important thing for me to understand.
That's really good. Okay, so you after you graduated, you got into the corporate world and you started banking first. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Once I finished high school, I was fortunate enough to get an internship with a bank in Milwaukee here. While I was a 17-year-old in high school still, I was given my first job, and it's not a glamorous job, but it meant everything to me. It was a banking job. I was filing checks and processing insurance payments, nothing fancy, but I was geeked up because you know what? It gave me confidence that I could actually be productive in the workplace at a young age.
Right.
And so the people who gave me that opportunity to this day, many of them are still there. I see them and I thank them because that started me on my way to understanding that I could be a part of this. And so I was also part of the Inroads program. And so I ended up with a 4-year internship while I was in college at the bank. And my ultimate goal was to be a commercial lender. And so each of those summers, I was fortunate enough to have a different department that I worked in and ultimately did commercial lending. And that never would have happened, quite honestly, if I didn't file those checks properly at the beginning.
Right.
And then I remember going into the vault and having to count money and make sure that it was the ones were with the singles with the singles and the coins with the coins, all those types of things that as I began to make my way through the bank, I understood it all tied together. Mm-hmm. And as I said, that little bitty thing of starting off right and mastering filing those checks made all the difference. So I did get to go into corporate America. I spent 5 years in banking, loved it. Probably the best corporate job I've had. is a banking job. It was a perfect mix for me because it gave me some analytical thinking, but a lot of customer entertainment as well. So I was able to analyze things and think critically, and then we go to ball games and have dinner and, you know, things like that. Because I'm a social guy. I love to interact with people. And she's like, yeah, you are. And I love to interact with people, and I love the feedback I get and the energy I get from people. And so that was a great experience. And at the 5-year mark, I had given myself a goal. And it's one of the things I think that's important as you deal with adversity and just life in general, is to set targets for yourself and give yourself time limitations on things. And so I knew that at the end of 5 years, I should be an officer for the bank, which is good. That means I would have been promoted. And at that 5-year period, I set a goal of going to get my MBA. And I was going to do that regardless. And so that 5-year period came. I had been promoted. I was an officer of the bank. I had done pretty well. And I left to get my MBA at Duke University, which was an amazing situation. And we'll talk about that, how even at the bank, basketball had resurfaced. I had been began coaching while I was banking, staying connected to basketball. I did play wheelchair basketball in college. I failed to mention that. And so basketball.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
I said I was going to bring it up.
Yes. and basketball never, that passion and that love I had for basketball never left. It didn't become paralyzed when I became paralyzed.
Right.
You know, it was still there. I just had to figure out now, how was I going to keep that passion going? And I never knew about wheelchair basketball because I was the only guy in a wheelchair in my school. I didn't know about any of that. I was exposed to that when I got to college, and I was open to it. It took me a little while because I was uncomfortable. I know this is hard for people to probably understand, but I was very uncomfortable around people in wheelchairs because I had never been around them before. And I was looking at them like I was getting looked at most of the time. And it was interesting. I had to catch myself and say, wait a minute, you know, you're doing to them what people have done to you. And I had to grow and learn and interact and get an appreciation for each of these people that I was playing with and dealing with on an individual basis.
Right.
That became important for me because I couldn't categorize every person that I met in a wheelchair the same way, because each had a different story and each had a different situation. There may have been some common things, but a lot was different. And that taught me so much about just giving people a chance and letting them into your life and give them a chance to fail you. I mean, if it doesn't work out, that's okay. But that led to so many other relationships at the bank and with basketball and eventually helping Coach K at Duke University while I was getting my MBA. To be able to follow your passion and not know the road you're gonna take. This was not a linear road. It was windy, it had hills, it had valleys, it had mountains, it had rocks in the way, it had all kind of different things. But to just stay on that course and then have the opportunity to be exposed to the highest level of college basketball by arguably the greatest coach of all time. You couldn't tell me at age 15 when I had that aneurysm that was where I was headed.
Right.
I didn't know that. But if I had stopped, I would have never reached that.
Right.
And so that was one of the lessons that my parents always taught us. Whatever you do it with all your might, be the best at it, and never quit. We couldn't quit anything at all, ever. Don't come in the house talking about you want to quit the team or you want to change classes. No, that was not going to happen in our house.
Yeah, I definitely can relate. My mom was like the Joe Jackson with me and my singing from a very young age. So I definitely understand quitting is not even in the vocabulary. So you have one of those smooth voices. I checked that out from when you spoke in Chicago at the event. So you was a radio personnel, correct?
Yes. I when I was in high school, one of the 4 guys that kind of took me under the wings, we both loved Christian music, like contemporary Christian music. And so we had a radio station in the basement of our school called The Wave. And he was like, man, we should do a radio show. I was like, okay, whatever. And I started doing it. I really liked it and everything. I didn't quite understand the gift I had as a voice at that time,
right,
until I got to college. And I just wanted to continue the music because I loved it and wanted to share it with people. And that was a time when the Winans and Commission and everybody was just blowing up, Witness and all these groups were just blowing up. And I wanted to get on the radio and share it with people. And so I did get to do that. I remember going to the station, and there had never been a radio show like that before. And so they weren't sure if that could happen and everything. And eventually it did. And I was able to, I guess they tell me I should have done late night jazz because of my voice.
You do gotta
but I did early morning stuff too. So it was one of those things again where my gifts, and when you talk about purpose and that type of stuff, I believe that you are given certain gifts that you just have to use. And once you realize they're a gift, you work on them, you try to perfect them. And I began to understand that my voice was a gift. It was unique, and it reached people in a way that I didn't know until people started telling me that, and I was like, okay, I guess I sound okay. I guess I've been given a little gift there. And so I was able to do that. And then, eventually I did some voice work and a few other things, and I love communicating. That's one of the gifts I feel I've been given to do. And when you've been given a gift with a voice to go with that gift like that from a communication standpoint, boy, it's a great 1-2 punch. And I just grateful that I was given that gift.
That's awesome. So you decided to write your book. What made you write your book, and when did it officially come out?
Okay. I wrote the book is called Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose. And I wrote the book that came out in August of 2018. What year is this? 2020?
20.
Yes. Yeah, so it came out August 6, 2018, which was my birthday. So that's when it was officially released. I was actually 2017. That's when it came out. It's actually older than I think now. So I left after I left education. I was talking with my wife about it, and I said, I think it's time. My assignment is up at the high school. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I think I've got something else I'm supposed to do. And she was in agreement with me. And I remember telling the guys in my class, because we were all male school, I said, the one thing I'm going to do is write a book. I can tell you guys, I know I'm supposed to do that. But I was very much more interested in speaking. And so I began to put all of my efforts in speaking and trying to get gigs and those types of things. And the book I knew I was supposed to do. And so on December 6th of 2016, I was on my way to Boston to give a speech. And while I was on the flight, I began having trouble breathing. And so the flight attendant gave me an oxygen mask and stuff, and my breathing got better. And so when we got off the plane, I asked for an EMT to be there. And they took me to Massachusetts General Hospital. And while I was there, they did some tests, and they said, well, sir, you're not going to be giving your speech today. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I've got 3 hours. Just give me some antibiotics. And they said, well, you've got submassive blood clots in your lungs, and we need to take care of that. And I said, okay, well, I won't be speaking today, so let me make some calls and tell the people that I won't be there. And this was a really large event, and it was one of the events that probably would have catapulted my speaking career fairly significantly. So while I'm in the hospital, I stayed in ICU because there were no other beds in the hospital available, and I was getting round-the-clock care that I probably didn't need. And it turned out that some of the doctors in the hospital heard I was there. They were former students of mine at the high school. And they began to come up and, hey, that's Mr. Cooks, blah, blah, blah. And, he was at Duke, and he knows Coach K. And they began to tell my story to the people who were serving me and helping me. And they began to ask, the doctors would come in and talk to see how I was doing. And they began to ask me, where's your book? And I'm like, well, I've been wanting to do one, and I think I will. And then another doctor comes, and my wife is there now, and he's like, your husband, does he have a book? He should write a book. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to write this book.
Right.
As soon as I get home, and we got home, I shut down everything for about 6 months or so. And we met, I met, that was 2017 when we started writing the book in that spring. So I guess it is 2018 that the book was actually published, because it took about a year to write the book. And it wasn't as difficult as I thought. I think one of the reasons I didn't do it right away is because it's easier for me to talk than it is for me to write. It's just, I can talk, I can speak, I can tell my story, but to write things and put it on paper was a challenge for me. It stretched me, and I think that's one of the things that we all have to face to get to our next level, is being stretched beyond comfort and learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it took me a little while to do that. And so we were able to, myself and one of my other former students, who was an English teacher, offered to help me write the book for free. And I said, you said for free? He said, yes. I said, well, you're in. And so we sat down and we actually did Zoom videos, Mondays and Wednesday nights over a course of 8 or 9 months or whatever it was it took us to kind of put it together. And then after that, we found a publisher and got it edited and released the book. And at the end, I tell you what, I was so proud when I had that book in my hand.
That I know the feeling.
That feel, that sense of accomplishment. On the other side of every assignment is a grade, but more importantly than the grade is what you learn in the process of completing that assignment. And I learned about perseverance and sticking with it. And on days when I didn't know what to write, okay, come back tomorrow, and just learning to, again, manage each day properly. And that took place with the book. And the reason I believe I wrote the book and was like an assignment to write the book was to encourage people that regardless of their situation, I don't care how difficult it is, you can not just survive, you can overcome and you can thrive, and that there are people that are willing to help you. There are connections that will be made as long as you keep moving forward. You be a person of integrity, you be a person of character, you work hard, and you keep moving forward, that you can make a difference.
Right.
You can make a real difference in someone else's life. And ultimately, for me, that's the greatest satisfaction of all, is to hear someone say, man, I've been watching you and you really inspired me. And I didn't know for years that people were watching what I was doing. I was just going about my business because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Work, take care of things, pay bills, things that everyone else does. Okay. But people were watching me through a different lens that I didn't know. And when they were telling me how much I inspired their life, it was humbling, it was gratifying, it was affirming. It was all of those things that we all, if we're honest, we all want validation of some sort, and for me, to put my life in a book and to be transparent in that book about the ups and the downs and getting fired and starting over, for me, it's probably the greatest thing I've ever accomplished so far. I mean, it's really been a blessing to me and to many others. And that's the reason I wrote it. And it wasn't for me, because I know who I am, but it was really meant to encourage people. And I thought it was time to, in a time where I thought a voice of encouragement was needed. You hear so many things of negativity and struggles and different things. And I just wanted this to be different, to let people, because people are reading the book and they would say to me, well, I was waiting for the other shoe to fall. I said, well, there was no other shoe. The shoe fell one time for me when I was 15 years old. After that, I started walking, so to speak. Yeah. And so there is no other shoe. I struggle with, I deal with the realities of this every day. I have to get up every day and get dressed and do the things I have to do. Just overcoming this sepsis. That was something I didn't anticipate. To be on bed rest for almost 4 months, just in time to be quarantined for the coronavirus. That was very difficult. And how how to better yourself when you're isolated and when you're by yourself. I mean, and I know that you understand that. And now I even have a greater empathy for people who have situations where they're convalesced and they're by themselves, for people who are incarcerated and better themselves in the midst of incarceration. Oh, those people are my heroes. I don't know what they've got to dig so deep to get that out. I just applaud any person that's in that situation that takes the time to better themselves and get degrees and do all those things in the midst of where they don't even know if they'll get out.
Yeah.
Boy, that 4-month period that's I'm ending now forever changed my life. And I know you're like, well, how many life-changing things do you have? You keep living, your life keeps changing.
No, I definitely agree. There's so many different steps and so many different levels to different things. So I truly understand exactly what you're saying to so many levels. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to one of my friends. He went from being homeless to becoming a lawyer to becoming one of Time's 100 top influential people.
Wow.
When he checked himself in, because he was on drugs and was homeless and stuff, and he checked himself in to get better, and he used that time to go back to school. And
Yes.
I mean, and then there's so many different things, so many steps that he had to do, but now he's this big person that was in the category with Michelle Obama and Lady Gaga with Times. I'm like, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
And those are inspiring stories. I mean, I have come to appreciate other people's stories as well. You know, as I speak and I travel, the rooms that I speak in are full of stories, full of people, and they'll come up afterwards and share personal things with me, and I get inspired by that. And I think that we all have a story to tell. I believe that your story is the most powerful thing you have to tell. And if you can tell that with humility and transparency and with the desire to help someone else, then you're life-changing for that person.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much about that.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. I was terrified to tell my story. I didn't think nobody wanted to hear my story. I was scared to really put myself out there on the limb and let people know that I've had failures, that I've went through divorce, and that I've had all these different struggles and everything. And then I found that once I actually told my story and put it in book form and everything, it was a relief. It was so liberating, and it was cool to have people, contact me, being able to relate to the different things that I was going through. And even now, once I injured myself with my knee, me posting my videos of me walking on the walker and being determined to walk across the stage for graduation, all those different types of things. It had people contact me saying, you can do it, I can do it type thing. And that's what your book did for me. When I was reading it. I was like, man, like if he could do this. I mean, you had so many things that knocked you down, but you got up. And I think that's always how somebody should be. Les Brown always says, if you can look up, you can get up. And I truly believe that. And you are one of those people to me that your story is so inspiring, and just the way your perspective is on everything is always like, wow. I mean,
I think you mentioned the word perspective, and I do think, and I love that quote from Les Brown, because I believe as long as you have breath, you can make a difference. Yeah. Even if it's just the last couple of things you have to say. Yeah. But perspective drives everything, I believe. How you see a thing determines how you attack it, and then how you attack it determines its outcome. And so if you don't think you can, and you don't think you're worthy, you probably won't be successful in that. And if you think it's a really big thing that you can't overcome, then you probably won't overcome it.
Right.
But if you can kind of just see it for what it is, a temporary thing, even though it's been a long time for me, this is going to pass at some point, whether in this life or the next, this is going to pass. And so I just have to get through these temporary setbacks and and use them as setups for success. And we all can do that. I just think we all can do that. And yeah, we get knocked down. I mean, life is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, life is life, and I don't care who you are. You know, I don't care what your socioeconomic background is, what your race is, what your gender is. Life is going to hit you, and it's going to hit you hard at some point. And maybe you haven't experienced it yet, but keep on living. Keep on living. It's coming, and your ability to get up off the ground will determine what your legacy and what your story is.
Yeah.
And if you just keep getting up, and you keep getting up, it's amazing how much stronger you get when you keep getting up. Because you have to use everything to stand again, and you're strengthening yourself again each time. And so that's what I think successful people do in general. And I think people who inspire others, like, I mean, your book inspired me. When I read it, I was like, wow, you know, because we had met, but I didn't know who you were or what you did, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I started reading, I was like, oh my goodness. And then she had this and that, and you just kept going. I mean, and you had ups and downs. I mean, it was not, your road was not linear either. You had windy hills and a whole bunch of stuff going on. But you were so focused. I think focus is a huge word that we probably should talk about a little bit more. People staying focused on your goal and your mission and what you really feel innately that you were designed to do. And you can't let the other stuff take that focus away, because once you do, you know, you'll be doing things that are okay, but you won't be fulfilled.
Yeah, definitely. So what's next for you? I know that you are an awesome speaker. Are you thinking about doing another book, or?
It's interesting, you know, a lot of people have asked me, because of this time I've had on bed rest, you know, I'm sure you're writing a book about it. And I said, you know, I don't know. I think I want to get healthy first. That's my first goal, is to kind of get back 100% healthy. But I will probably look to do some sort of second edition of the book, or something like that, with or either a workbook or something that gives people an opportunity to deal with their own situations and answer questions about their own life, and try to help them get through some of that. I'm going to begin a podcast called Getting Undressed, the podcast. And we'll be talking to people who have stories similar to yours and mine, that are just, quote unquote, everyday people with extraordinary stories, to try to help people to grow in that type of stuff. So we'll be kicking that off fairly soon. And with the current virus situation and businesses closed and everything, I don't know what the future holds. I've got literally things canceled that haven't been rescheduled. So I know what it means to not have income for 4 or 5 or 6 months. I haven't had any. All of those things I take into consideration as I begin to go out and speak again, because now I have more experiences now to tell.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of life, is that as you grow, if you're willing to learn and grow, there's more you can tell. And so I know what all those things are like. And you know, who knows? I mean, there might be another book. I just it hasn't come to me yet what that would be. But I know I want to do something with the book. We're going to begin to start doing interviews with people who have read the book, short little 5-10 minute interviews, and put those out on social media to get the content of the book out there, and things that impressed them, and what touched you, and you know, what did you leave with when you read the book, those types of things. So we'll do that, and hopefully get back to speaking. You know, I've learned that I don't know enough about what I'm doing to be overly confident about things. You know, I know that there's very few things I can control, and so I try to control the things I can, and that's my effort, my attitude. I try to stay focused and get quiet and ask God for direction, and just kind of move forward that way. If you had told me, you know, 40 years ago that I'd have a book and be a speaker and all that, I probably would have never agreed that was going to happen. because I didn't know that was in my future. But I know where I am now, and I think there's some things left to do in the speaking arena and with this book, and it's just getting started, and now everybody's had a little interruption.
Right.
And I often talk about pay attention to the interruptions in your life because they're trying to teach you something or tell you something. And this was a crazy interruption that is teaching us a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think we each can learn from this and grow and be stronger. And the big thing for me is once you find your purpose, and once I found my purpose of reaching people, I want to leave them better. Put your purpose into action. Just don't know what it is for yourself, because your purpose is always bigger than you. It's for someone else. It's for the world. And so once you understand that, it takes care of ego and everything else, because it's really not about you.
That's well said. So can you tell everybody how they can get your book and how they can book you? Because I promise you, when they listen to this, they're gonna want to book you even more.
Sure, I can be. My book is on Amazon, and also at my website, which is davidcookspeaks.com. Okay, davidcookspeaks.com is my website. You can also order the book there. You can contact me on my website, or I'm also on social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm on all of those, and you're able to reach me there as well. If you want a signed copy of the book, then go to my website and order it directly from me, and I'll sign it for you and make sure we ship it out. So it'd be an honor to do that. And especially now that we have a little extra time on our hands, I too have been doing more reading and more listening to podcasts and things to improve myself that otherwise, honestly, I'm not sure I would have done it, because I'd have been busy trying to speak and run around and do different things. So use this time as a time of self-care and reflection. In the book it says about reflect, regroup, and relaunch. What a great time to do that, to sit down and assess where you are and who you are, get yourself back together and prepare yourself for the next step. That's the relaunch aspect. And so that's what I'm doing with myself too. I've got a feeling that this venue is going to become a lot more used in the future with technology and Zoom. And so those of us who speak in front of groups, we may have to figure out how to best use this technology as we move forward. So I'm excited about that. I think it's a great time to be alive. I think there's going to be great opportunity coming out of this. You just got to be prepared to move forward and be comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's what it is right now.
Definitely. Well, I want to say thank you so much for being a part of Transparency Podcast. At Transparency Podcast, one of my goals is to peel back the layers and use those stories to inspire other people. And I definitely know that your story not only inspires me, but it's going to inspire all of the listeners and everybody that's tuning in. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't take these things for granted.
Cool. Well, with that being said, we're going to sign off. So goodbye, you guys. Talk to you later. Thank you.